Welcome back to Loose Frame Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Martin Olich, brought to you by our friends at Blind Tiger Coffee. And joining me as always,
Sam Allen and
Birdie Doyle.
Good morning, ladies. How are you?
very good. Very excited about today's episode. We had an amazing interview with Nurse Deon.
Yeah, and for those
exciting.
who don't know, we actually kind of teased Nurse Deon a couple of months ago, or a couple podcasts ago, with Luis and Roberto Torres from Blind Tiger Coffee. They are producing a children's show called Nurse Deon.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of thought to ourselves, like, oh, children's content. We really haven't, gone into that yet.
Yeah.
Let's just see if we can get him on the podcast.
We need like Sheer Studios or someone to do an in-house kids show. That's what we're missing. We've got the romance, we've got the sci-fi, we've got the horror.
Yeah, we have a historical piece going on right now.
We've got
Landry
historical fiction.
But, it'd be nice to have some children's broadcasting coming through here.
Yeah.
So we have the wonderful Nurse Deon coming up in just a second. I agree. I thought it was one of my top 5 interviews so far. It was just a joy to talk with him. But we won't spoil much more because we have a whole interview to get to. Anything else before we kick off?
I think you hit the nail on its head. Birdie and I were sitting back there like with our notes being like, yeah, this episode was a joy to listen to. So you guys are going to love it too.
All right. Well, with that, we hope it's a joy to listen to. We'll be right back with Nurse Deon. Welcome back to Loose Frame Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Martin Olich, and this is brought to you by our friends at Blind Tiger Coffee. And joining me today is Nurse Deon. How are you?
I'm doing well, Tyler. Thank you for having me, man.
Thank you for coming out. We mentioned you loosely, Loose Framing Podcast, loosely on a previous episode with our actual sponsors, Blind Tiger, Roberto Torres. And we ended the podcast talking about his children's TV show he'd been working on. You as the host. And we sat there after we wrapped and thought about it. And like, we haven't done anything with children's programming. And I thought this was an excellent opportunity to bring you here. We're going to learn all about Nurse Deon, the show, here in a second. But I want to learn more about you, Nurse Deon, an actual nurse, first. So a little about your background. Where did you start at?
So I'm a Tampanian. Is that how you say it?
Tampanian?
Tampanian?
Tampano.
Yeah.
Depending on who's listening, they're either going to be really mad or be happy with how
All right.
said
Well,
that.
I was born and raised in Tampa, Florida. So I started at a children's hospital locally here. Nursing was not my original plan. I was a camp counselor at the local YMCAs. And funny story, a nurse practitioner actually came in and said, hey, you do really well with the kids when they're healthy. And what about when they're sick? Have you ever thought about working with them? Never had a thought. I was continued on with my day. Later that summer, my sister was actually diagnosed with diabetes, and she was in the hospital. I had an opportunity to actually see how nurses move while they're in the hospital. Mind you, during that time, I was confused. I didn't know what was going on. And they had this energy about them that just really calmed me. And it inspired me.
Yeah.
So I joked with one of the nurses, looked at her, and I was like, hey, one day I'm going to come work with you. And she looked at me and kind of laughed. I got my CNA license that December and started the following year at the local children's hospital.
Okay.
And haven't turned back since. Was CNA for about 8 years. Took a little hiatus in between those just to, experience life a little bit, and had this void that I didn't know how to fill. And I realized that the best feelings I had was when I was bedside working with families. And no matter money, no matter job, no job that I've ever done before really filled that void. So I thought back. I had a moment where I reflected back when I was living in Orlando, and I was like, what job fulfilled me the most? And it was working bedside. So in 2016, I moved back to Tampa, started nursing school. 2018, actually, I started nursing school and finished. And then, I've been running since.
Yeah. All the credit to you and anyone who's working in the field of medicine or education. No one gets into those fields to become wealthy, right? It's the stress and everything else that goes into it. You really have to have a heart for it. And I really appreciate what you just said there, the calmness that you feel, right? Mm-hmm. And I can imagine bringing your children to the hospital and just the whirlwind of emotion that's going on. And you just need someone, a rock, to come in and kind of calm the situation, give you the answers you need, and be there for a very scary moment in that child's life.
Absolutely. And you hit on something that I teach a lot of the new nurses that come in. I was like, you're not just taking care of the patient, little Timmy. You're taking care of mom and dad too, because this may be a whole new experience for them, and their emotions are going to be high. So they're your patient as well. So I tell everybody this. One of the first things I do whenever I get report from the leaving nurse is I'll get report bedside, and then I go straight to mom and dad. Hey, how are you doing? Can I get you a coffee?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times that little gesture can make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Because we need mom and dad to be able to be at their best in order to advocate for their child.
Yeah.
And I realized that working as a CNA, how important that humanity is.
Yeah.
And it's
Well,
it's a
and
wonderful
I
thing.
imagine too the child, particularly if they're on the younger side, has no idea what's going on.
100%.
Very, very scary moment. And if they look over and see that mom and dad are losing it, that just adds their fear. So it really is, to your point, like if I can keep them calm, if I can give them a little bit of kindness to settle them, that's going to be a moment of calm that's going to translate to the child as well.
And Tyler, you mentioned something that's really accurate that I try to tell a lot of parents. They feed off you. They, being the kids, really do feed off you. So if dad's calm, child may be a little calmer. Mind you, there's still some things going on that they may feel uncomfortable with, but they have you to reassure them, which is the key.
Yeah, I'm a very recent parent. I never plan on having kids, but I find myself now in my 40s with two stepchildren who I absolutely adore. But the 10-year-old, I think it was 9 at the time actually, had a bad stomach ache in the middle of the night, and you go into teledoc these days, and they're like, that is an appendicitis, and
right away
we're freaking out,
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So we're in the emergency room, and I'm old enough. I've been in the emergency room many a times myself. But the difference between going into an ER as an adult and an ER as a child, and we went to an actual pediatric hospital, right, is night and day. And I think there was to your point, like a calmness about everyone there, because I think they're dealing with people that are very susceptible to reading and feeling other people's emotions.
Absolutely.
I think they're all very conscious of it. It turned out to be a stomach ache. He ate too much food, but
okay.
knock on wood. But it was one of those moments where it was like, wow, I don't know how to feel in this moment or the situation, but I'm sure glad someone's in the room right now who can calm this down and explain what's going on to the kid, because I didn't know how to explain it.
Absolutely.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about how do you go from being a nurse then to moving out to LA and getting into film production.
Absolutely. So I went to go help my sister. She fell in between hard times, and the best way I knew I can help her is to just move out there. In the state of California, it's one of the highest paying states in our industry. Mind you, it's still not the best, obviously,
Yeah.
But I knew I can leverage my license to make a little bit more money to help pay her bills and, get her through that stage of life. It was supposed to be a 6 months to 1 year stint, and it ended up being a little bit longer. And then hence why we are at this table today is I ran into a buddy from mine who we both went to Braulio Alonso High School. Shout out to Alonso.
My partner teaches at Alonso.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What subject?
History and psychology.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Who's your partner?
Courtney Ward. And
graduated in 07, so
her son goes to Alonso right now.
Great school. Whoop, whoop. Yeah. So
you were the second Alonso graduate we've had on this podcast. That is the weirdest thing.
Who was
the first? Who was our first? Birdie? Sergio Valdez, right? Yes. Velasquez. Sorry.
Right on. So my buddy Malcolm from high school, I knew he moved out to LA, and I didn't quite know what exactly he was doing. He's a freelance guy, so he does a little bit of everything. But I followed his film journey throughout since the moment that he moved out there, and I just thought it was really cool to living that dream a lot of us have maybe, and to follow it. And so when I moved out to LA, I didn't have a lot of friends, really. I was trying to network with people and just meet people, but I knew he was out there and he was a good guy. So I texted him. I was like, hey, I'm here. And funny enough, I guess he was filming out in Italy. So he thought I was in Italy just randomly too with him. And he was just like, wait, you're in Italy? I'm like, no, I'm in Los Angeles. But I just moved here and I would love to meet up with you and just catch up on things. So yeah, we met up, and as we were catching up, he was telling me what he was doing. He was like, I'm working on this new children's show called Blippi, or not new at the time, but just a children's show called Blippi. And it's been a great experience, learned a lot. And I was like, joking with them, I was like, huh, I had this idea planted in my head many, many moons ago of creating a kids show for kids that are, to help them reduce their fear of going to the hospitals and doctor's office. And he looked at me, he goes, I love that idea. He was like, I've been looking for something like this. Parents are asking more for this. He was like, if you're serious, let's do this. And I was like, oh man, that's a big ask. So lo and behold, in 2022, we sat down, and in 2023, we started the pre-production of it, and we haven't turned back since.
Yeah. I love that idea. And we were talking before the camera started rolling about some of our children's shows that we grew up on, right? And we'll get to those a little later. But just the idea of programming something that is kids friendly, educational, which a lot of this content is, but in a sector that is kind of ignored, right? Which is healthcare,
Sure.
right? And if you think about, yeah, it's great to learn how to tie your shoes and how to, learn to deal with conflict in different situations. But how often do kids go to the hospital or the doctor, particularly when they're young, for shots or exams, and the fear that comes from that? And I can't think of another instance outside of maybe a random episode of Mr. Rogers or a Sesame Street where it was dedicated to letting the kids know, hey, this is okay. Like, this is a person here to help you. I think it's genius.
Absolutely. And a lot of times our parents growing up, they maybe didn't even have the resources to know how to navigate that. So trying to explain it to the child may be difficult. Hence why we're trying to help bridge that gap of being that conduit for parents of, hey, you may not be able to find the words to maybe describe what's about to happen, but this Nurse Deon show, we have the tools that you need in order to help them.
Yeah.
Not only that, trying to make it a little bit entertaining so your child can actually watch something that they're going to be entertained but also learn from.
Yeah.
So
I guess if I think about it, when you're in that hospital environment, you're already, you're doing your job, you're focused, but that calmness that comes from experience. But I also think it's a bit of an act too, right? You're calming yourself down in that situation. So how was it then to translate those very same skills to being in front of a camera now and actually acting out a scene? Did you find that just real easy to transition into, or was it a big learning curve?
That's a great question. I'm still actually learning that, Tyler. It's one of those things, I talk about it with new nurses. When I'm going into a room, imagine having 4 doors. I go to each room knowing that they are experiencing their own journey. Room 1 may have just a broken leg. Room 2 may have appendicitis. Room 3 may have a really unfortunate diagnosis of cancer. I have to go into each room and assess the situation, assess where they're all at, and be the person, be the nurse that they need in that situation. Sometimes I am lighthearted, and sometimes I'm more energetic. Sometimes I'm a little bit more, calm, because that's what the family needs. Now, in order to translate that on camera has been a little bit difficulty because it's not in the moment, but I'm learning as I go that I can try to take these moments that I've had and bring it into that situation. So it's still a learning curve that I'm doing.
Yeah. Are you part of the writing process as well for each of these episodes and figuring out, okay, this is what I want to tackle this particular episode or this week?
Yeah. Yes, we have topics. For the season 1, we created topics that I know that were very broad, but also very impactful. As far as the writing process, yes, Malcolm and I, we would sit down on these days, and we both, ADHD squirrels. So we would start a writing session, but then, get hungry about 10 minutes into it. And then you'd be like, all right, well, let's take a break. So the writing process was a bit difficult for us because just sitting down and actually writing everything down. Luckily, his girlfriend, Katie, who's been a great help, she kept us on track because we realized how important the writing is in this and scripting, because we did use a script a lot of times just to help my brain out.
Yeah.
It was a task, but it taught me a lot about how much we need to simplify things when we're explaining things to kids to really slow things down, because a lot of times healthcare providers, me included, we get so caught up in the moment of what's going on that we forget to just be in that moment with them and explain things in a way that they can understand, especially for children. So in order to connect with the children of those ages, we have to explain it a certain way. So writing is huge.
Is there a particular episode you can think back on that it was a very difficult subject to explain to the kids, but you kind of cracked that nut and found a way to do it in a way that was palatable to the kids and still entertaining.
Great question. Actually, yeah. One of my favorite episodes is the not so scary shot, because getting a shot, getting vaccines, getting a poke, whatever verbiage you want to use, can be scary no matter what age.
Mhm.
Tyler, I am an adult and I still get a little when I'm getting blood work done.
Yeah.
It's not the poke, it's my blood,
Same thing.
See?
I
It-
actually pass out if I see blood. So
So we can relate. I joke about this with the kids all the time. Of course, after I,
Yeah.
give them an IV. But that's what makes it relatable. Now going back to that episode, I found it very important, and I had the opportunity of having a real life child life specialist who's like a teacher in the hospital come and be bedside and do their role as if we were really caring for a patient. I found that topic tough because it's a very common thing that kids come in with the fear of.
Mhm.
I don't want a shot. That's the first thing they come through the door. I don't want a shot. I don't want a shot. The reality is no one does. But if we had the tools and the resources to help us navigate those situations, I think that can better prepare us for the future.
Yeah.
Whether it's getting a shot, whether it's going in for an interview, sitting down for a podcast, those skills, those things that we learn in order to help prepare us, can give us a better future.
Yeah, absolutely. How is it working with the kids on this show? Are you enjoying that as well, or is it just like, all right?
Great question. So, kids can be difficult to work with, from what I've been told. So, what we actually did was we took a page out of an old show, which a lot of us grew up on, Sesame Street,
Yeah.
and we used puppets. The puppets are the kids, and what we did, including in the scripting, things that kids would normally say when they're in those
Yeah.
situations. So when the kid hears it, when the puppet's saying it, it's hopefully more relatable. And the answers that we're giving them is what we would actually tell them. So the puppets have been a key element, I think, in this show, and I love them. I still have them all. I keep them, in my house currently, and I have friends that walk in and it kind of throws them off. But yeah.
Well,
the
you
puppets.
mentioned Sesame Street, so let's transition a little bit.
Love
What
it.
were some of the inspirations in the creation of this? Were you looking back to your childhood or more modern cartoons and kids programming?
Sure. So on our pitch deck, we did a mixture of Sesame Street, Blue's Clues, Mr. Rogers, and of course Blippi. Kind of tying them all in, but using just this as a vehicle. Blue's Clues, Sesame Street, Reading Rainbow, and Mr. Rogers all had a very impactful meaning in my life, as many of you as well, it sounds like. And I felt like maybe getting back into those roots could really maybe inspire a kid or two that watches this. It's not as fast paced as a lot of current children's programming. It's a little bit slower pace. There are times where it's high energy, but there's times where it's just more grounded, And I think that the kids need that grounding.
Yeah. I think parents are looking for that grounding
Sure.
too. And it's a little more relatable. The speed at which kids consume media, I think, I'm not a child psychologist, but I think it's a little troubling sometimes. So I do like the idea of it something being a little quieter, a little more methodical. And I think back to the shows that I grew up on, mentioned it like Reading Rainbow, Mr. Rogers, Sesame Street. It's not frenetic, right? It has energy to it, but it's not just boom, 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 boom. Like it does sit there with them and treats them. I think it's the most important part. It treats them in a way where they're not talking down to them.
Correct.
They're meeting them at
They're
their own
meeting them
level.
where they're at.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're not treating these kids as if they are stupid or they can't understand it. Like it's meeting them at their level and talking to them in a serious way to communicate serious things, but without disrespecting them.
Absolutely. And that's translate to even real life. When they're in the moment, when they're in the hospital, we have to be able to explain things in a way that they're going to know, because again, our goal as healthcare providers is to do no harm. And how do you do that if they're scared? So my job is to try to make them come off that ledge a little bit, make them a little less scared, so they know what I'm doing is not harming them. I do care for them, but being able to explain it to them how they can understand.
Yeah. Have you had an opportunity to meet with any of the kids or parents who've seen the show and see how that has helped them in their own journey through the healthcare system?
I love that. I get messages all the time from parents, some that I know, some that I don't know, which is the beauty of it, because that's, that reassurance that what I'm doing is the right thing. And they tell me, I showed this episode to my child before going in to the doctor's office, and they were able to name the tools that they use, the stethoscope. They knew when they were getting their blood pressure taken, things like that. And that right there is that reassurance that really helps fill my cup because, I think as we navigate life, especially as it comes down to like our art, as you will, we don't know. There's no barometer. We don't know how to gauge if what we're doing is working. But when it comes from the parents, it's great because that means the kids are enjoying it. Kids say the darnest things. Kids have no filter. You'll know how they feel and where they're at, what they think about you in that moment because they'll tell you. So if something's bad, they'll tell you. If something's good, they'll tell you. So the feeling of, getting that feedback from parents saying that their child enjoys this, that's, so filling for me.
I can just feel your energy sitting next to you, just how rewarding you find this. I mean, it glows off of you.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. This has been quite the journey, and I'm still learning a lot as I go because I am a nurse by trade, but I'm learning a lot about the entertainment industry as well. But trying to stay grounded with it all and understand that how impactful what we're doing really matters.
Yeah. Do you see your role on the entertainment side growing in the future? Is that where you're kind of heading?
I would love that. I got a little taste of everything, and there's some things in the future still that I want to do. Maybe still on brand with what we're doing, but maybe as it graduates a little bit. But as well as just exploring who I am as a person, as Deon, from different maybe even characters. Although Nurse Deon's not really a character per se. It is me. It's parts of me. There are moments where I'm happy. There's moments where I'm sad, and this experience of working the show has really taught me how to kind of get in tuned with that.
Yeah.
So I would love to see where this goes next, whether it's Nurse Deon or another project.
I'm curious now on the healthcare side. Do your coworkers know that you're Nurse Deon as well on TV?
So it took a while for me to, because I don't really talk about myself too much, but it did get out there finally where I had to put it out in the world if this is what I was doing. And then more and more people find out, from the physicians that I work with, the doctors, the anesthesiologists that I work with, coming up to me, and they love what I'm doing. So yeah, a lot of them do know now.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with it. And they give me great feedback. They give me ideas. So it's been really comforting to have them as supportive.
Have you ever been recognized in the wild?
Not yet. I don't.
Would that be flattering to you, or being like, oh no, it's still too weird now?
Oh, I'm sure it's gonna be a combination of both because I just get embarrassed. It's one of those things that I'm new to, but it would be great when that time does come, when a little child just comes run up to me and says, like, you helped me, because even as a healthcare provider now, when I work bedside, when I have those patients that come back to me that remember me and the moments that I spent with them, that is, like I said, it's so rewarding. So if this is another avenue that I can get in touch with the people at their home, then so be it.
Yeah. The puppets and the structure of the show aside, what is the Nurse Deon show doing differently than contemporary children's programming that you've kind of analyzed and looked at? The topic's obviously very unique, but I have to imagine you're bringing, because not a lot of hosts have a background in what they're talking about, right? They're reading off of a script, but you know this stuff. And I think that adds an authenticity and an authority that someone else might, in your same shoes, not have.
Sure. And I think a lot of people are surprised that, that I am a real nurse, a real pediatric nurse, rather than just a character that you see on this show. And it brings a unique touch to the show because it's a sense of realness. There's a current show called The Pit that's out there, and there is actually a real ER nurse that's helping in the show, and as well as just making sure everything's right. So I have that ability to kind of see things as they are and be like, all right, well, we have to do it this way because this is the real life scenario, and we have to make sure it's true to form. So that my experience is able to help be that person on set, and it's been helpful, I think, for the show and to good thing about the show is that we use real people that have that role in the while we're filming. For example, we have a real child life specialist that's on that in our episode where they bring in their experience and expertise in the scripting as well. So we make sure that it's accurate when the child comes to the hospital, as well as a pediatric physical therapist that we've had on the show, where that's actually their role. So she'd make sure everything was accurate on how they would actually help kids out when they're treating them.
Yeah. When we were growing up, and certainly when I was growing up, it was Sesame Street. Sesame Street was synonymous with PBS, and now Sesame Street is on, it's either Netflix or HBO, I forget. Yeah, Netflix. PBS is still around, but this last year, the government's stopped funding it, so now they need funding from the private sector more than ever before.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about the importance of children's programming and why a show like a Sesame Street or a Mr. Rogers or a Nurse Deon is still so valuable for childhood development.
Because we need those platforms, we need those programs in order to really help kids in their future. It starts with the foundation. It starts with their understanding of the world as they are an infant and as they are developing into a child and into our teenage years. If we don't have those programmings, my concern is that, the kids, it won't do them justice. They deserve to have program that's going to help them in the future. And I strongly believe, PBS was a wonderful programming that really helped develop a lot of us. And, it would be unfortunate for programming like that to just leave and nothing fill that gap.
Yeah. I remember vividly coming home and watching Reading Rainbow. That was the first thing I turned on when I got home from school every single day. And it blows my mind that we could be in a spot in the not too distant future where we don't have that kind of programming anymore.
And at that point, what do we fall on to? How are we going to help these kids? And that's the goal. We have to leave the earth better than where we found it. It doesn't do them justice if we take away something that means so much that they don't even know that means so much to them.
And parents, to their credit, try to give, I think most truly try to give the kids as much as they can.
Absolutely.
But there's only so many hours during the day.
100%.
And it's not parenting through the television, but it is making sure that when they're not there in the room, that they're watching content that is both entertaining but also educational.
Absolutely. And it's luckily we have this void that we can fill with the right people. That's why I'm hoping maybe one day that I inspire somebody else to do something that's going to help educate the future. And we have that opportunity. Luckily, YouTube is a great resource. It can be a great resource. It's a tool that parents use to help them, like you said, when they're maybe have a lot of things going on, but they want to put on a show that they know is going to mean something. This is that opportunity. This is that vehicle.
Yeah. So looking back over all the episodes you've shot so far, do you have a favorite memory? It doesn't have to be a favorite episode, but just something that you walked home afterwards and was like, man, I feel good about today. Like this was just, it filled your heart.
Good question. Let's see.
It could have been a funny moment. It could have been just a genuine, blooper that you look back and it's like, wow, that was funny.
I'm sure I got one. Hold on, give me 1 minute. Let's see. We did 2 weeks of shooting, like back to back to back to back. I've never done anything to that capacity. But the energy that you have when you're there with the crew, especially, man, I really got an opportunity to see how important having that crew is. And each role is important. And they have your back, and to be able to do that for 2 weeks was, it was fun, and I had never done anything like it. We had like I said, we had pages of scripts for the first week. We're 5 days shooting, and then the second week was unscripted, where we got a chance to go to Zoo Tampa, Clearwater Marine Aquarium, and Glazer Children's Museum, and those were in the motion or in the wild. So I've never done anything like that, where I'm interacting with the people that are on the show, as well as there's a crowd watching me, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool.
Yeah.
In the moment, it was nerve-wracking, but after it was all said and done, when day 10 rolled around and we were in the park filming our last scene, and I got a chance to just breathe and say, we did it.
Yeah.
That was probably like the coolest thing of it all. And I remember me and Malcolm had a moment. We were just sitting on our balcony after the end, and we were just like, yo, we just did this.
We
and
shot a children's
We
show.
shot a children's show in 2 weeks. Like it was awesome. You know, like it was a great experience, and I can't wait to do it again.
Yeah.
So
So what is the future of Nurse Deon?
great question. You know, we're always trying to learn as we go. Season 2, we're trying to get in development, as well as I would love to do like a feature. Think of like Elma Palooza kind of thing,
Mhm.
where we incorporate a little bit of musical element into our core episode. But I would love to get like a maybe an hour-long segment, feature-length film for these kids, because I think it'd be a great little thing. And then as well as
Now I'm just imagining Nurse Deon in the pit with puppets.
that would be an interesting. That would be funny.
Because I have seen that show. It's excellent.
Great show, great writing. It's yeah. Oh no, it's a great show. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. So let's do some plugging of the show now
Okay.
too. Where can people find this? How can they stream it? How can they watch it?
Great. Check out YouTube, NURSEDEON, Nurse Deon, and you will find it. It's on YouTube. I'm also on other social media platforms, but YouTube is the greatest resource for your child as far as finding me in the episodes.
That's wonderful. Nurse Deon, this has been a joy to talk about this show. Again, I didn't think I'd have kids at my age, but I'm glad that now that I do, that there are people
That's why
like
you're so
you out
happy.
there. It is. I'm going camping with them next week for
See?
spring break. Not
Love
to
it.
date the podcast, but it's really nice to know that there are people out there like you who are creating really good, entertaining but educational content for people. I mentioned earlier, like I can feel the energy coming off of you. I can feel how happy the subject makes you, and that's just a great feeling to sit across from someone like that. So thank you for spending some time with us this morning.
Tyler,
we really appreciate it.
Tyler, I really appreciate you for having me on the show.
I appreciate it. And watch Nurse Deon on YouTube. And for those watching, we'll be right back.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Butterfly in the sky.
I can go twice as high.
Take a look.
It's in a book.
Reading Rainbow.
With that, we are back.
Hey, neighbors.
Hey,
Yes.
From Mr. Rogers.
won't you be my neighbor?
Won't you be my neighbor?
I'm feeling inspired and happy. I think the coffee is doing part of that job, but that was just a really fun interview with Nurse Deon. So it was just kind of a joy.
Yeah. It was fantastic. I feel like this is a subject that I'm also really passionate about. Growing up, my dad was a paramedic, so I got that very like early training of like, hey, keep calm, take a deep breath. And most children don't get that. And a show that sort of teaches them from a young age is going to have like huge impact on how they react to emergencies for the rest of their lives. And to have it happen with a real nurse who understands how to meet children where they're at, I'm obsessed with that
Well,
subject.
and not just like a one-time nurse, a current actively working nurse, which helps because as the kids change every few years or whatever, then he's still working with them. So he knows exactly what that show needs.
Mhm.
Yeah. It was, I mean, I mentioned on the podcast, but he had an energy about him, and I am not like woo-woo crystals kind of stuff, but like you could just feel how joyous he is as a person. Like it was really, I don't want to say calming because I feel energetic now, but it was just a good feel.
Yeah. Good vibes all around.
Yeah, when he walks in a room, like even when he didn't have a performance mindset when he walked into our studio and we all introduced ourselves to him. He just genuinely has that light about him.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I love that he works with puppets. I love that, he's also writing, or at least co-writing a lot of these episodes. I love that he just happenstance graduated from the same high school that my partner teaches at or taught at. It's just it was a really good interview. I did bring up PBS though, and I didn't want to end on a sour note. That's why we kept the podcast rolling. But children's programming is kind of at an inflection point right now, where the importance of inserting educational value into entertaining children's content was really held together by PBS, and without a PBS running that flag, running that standard, I think we're going to kind of devolve into, we were talking kind of offline, idiocracy. Is it going to be the next children's show brought to you by Brondo? I mean, what's going on here?
It's the access to the internet that kids have. It's crazy. Because we were talking about PBS pulling their funding, and my thought from the behind the scenes was that what I wished I could have said was that they're not going to have nothing to watch if PBS pulls kids programming. There's so much to watch. They just don't have anything for them if PBS doesn't have it.
And I think it's too much to watch, to be perfectly honest.
It's too much. It's not directed in any intentional way. I took one semester of kids psychology in high school or in college, but the colors are important. It's like, all the way that people speak is important. That's why Miss Rachel, we were talking about that too, like enunciates, because her target audience needs to hear enunciated words. Like kids are just watching whatever. It's insane. And I'll say, because I worked educational TV, kids slip between the cracks. Even the educational TV channels, or like the people that are meant to make educational content, they're focusing it towards adults and on because it's easier for us as adults to make content for them.
Well, and attention spans are such, and that's not to reduce down kids these days just to the flashing things on their cell phones, but their attention span is a lot less than it was. And I run into this. I don't think we even talked about it in the podcast, but I teach occasionally on Wednesday nights to seniors at one of the local universities here in town. And getting them to sit through a movie is almost impossible. I tried showing them, Robert Altman's The Player, which fabulous movie, one of the greatest examples of the behind the scenes of producing and just the Hollywood studio mechanisms. And they just kept getting up, going to the bathroom, checking their cell phones. It's like, how can this movie not hold your attention? I don't get it. And I think it goes back to they've been conditioned that the dopamine hits need to hit, every 15, 30 seconds. So if you look at children's programming, by and large, the content is much slower. It takes its time. It's trying to get the kids to pay attention and focus, as opposed to just look for the next thing that's going to be a gimmick to get them something.
Well, that was the issue that we talked about that when I was a film major, was that all the movies we were studying that were good films from before, The Deer Hunter for some reason keeps coming to mind, is just they're slow, but then you see everything that was made, like everything. When I was in high school, it's like superhero movies got really big, and the Hunger Games and dystopian, and it's all flashy, quick shots. There's no lingering shots, right?
Yeah.
So what we were learning in school wasn't anything made in the last 10 years. It was everything made 20, 30, 40 years ago. And that's what you should be striving for.
And, go ahead, no.
What I was going to say is, I think one of my favorite takeaways from this episode was that all of the shows that he's modeling this after are timeless classics. Even back, we are 3 different generations sitting here. And when we're sitting over there in the back and he mentions Reading Rainbow, all 3 of us had the same look on our face at the same time. And we're like, Reading Rainbow! It is timeless. And the idea that he's modeling a new show after the things that make those shows successful, it just gives me hope, and it makes me happy to know that children are going to get that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mentioned The Player. You mentioned Deer Hunter, great Michael Cimino film. No one contemporaneous to the time period in which those movies were being made mentioned anything about them being slow or boring, right? That is kind of a modern lens looking back. And you can do the same thing with early film. You look at, something like a Charlie Chaplin film, it's kind of herky-jerky. The frame rates aren't quite baked in. And it's because they were hand cranking things, and the hand can only crank so fast, right? Before it kind of gives out. So we weren't having a sustained 24 frames per second or 34 frames per second. And it was about 14 frames or 12 frames, but all the human body can crank, right?
Yeah.
But looking back at the writings for people who were watching those films, again, contemporaneous to when they were made, no one mentioned that, because the eyes and the brain and how we interpret information has evolved over time. And in this case, a very short period of time. So what we watch and consume really does have an effect physiologically and psychologically on our bodies.
Yeah.
And we're at this, again, an inflection point where kids are consuming media so quickly and so fast that it's not that they don't have the attention span. I was kind of reductive when I said that earlier. It's that their brain has interpreted things that took us a lot longer to interpret, and now they're ready for the next thing to come around.
Yeah. I think it's a mix, I will say, though, because I have that issue, too, where I'll be watching TV, watching a movie, and I instinctively am like, let me pull my phone out. Why? And we were talking about that. Patrick and I were talking about that the other day. But the thing that you said that they're talking about it now, though. Like the Deer Hunter, as our example, like, great movie. No one questioned it. But now I did a project in school at UT about this exact thing. And there are a lot of people criticizing, like, everything is so quick because of the attention span issue. Everything has to be loud and flashy and bright because dull colors. It's like, oh, I've seen that. I've been there. It's like, so people are mentioning at least. And hopefully we're going back because they are saying that's not the move.
And I think that, I can't remember who was in this movie, but Netflix was talking about this film that they're going to make with a major star. If you remember it, let me know. And they were like, oh, hey, because people are on their phones, when you make this movie, we want you to re-mention the plot points.
Over and over again,
yeah, just so that someone who may not be paying attention could still follow the movie. And the people in the film were like, no.
I will say, it's interesting to think about kids and movies, though, because I took my little sister, who's 11, to see Zootopia 2. And I kept going back and forth thinking about, this is just a fun little tidbit. Like, I've never tried to write something for kids, but it's interesting to try to tackle which age group are we really tackling here. Zootopia 2, like, there were lines and jokes that I was like, is there a 7-year-old in this audience that's going to get what that means? Like, there were vocab words and I was like, I don't think a 7-8-year-old would know that word. But then again, 10, 12, 14-year-olds want to watch the movie too. So it's interesting that they have to try to target
parents
everybody.
Also have to take those kids to the theaters.
I know. But it was just interesting to think about, like, the wide range that Zootopia 2, for example, is trying to target and how different, like, the first and the last kid's understanding of the movie are. It's just interesting. I never thought about it.
We took the kids to see, I think it was Dog Man, which was like a spinoff of Captain Underpants.
Yeah.
I knew none of this, right?
Oh, yeah,
I went into that movie and I was like, this is the worst thing I've ever watched. I literally fell asleep. I was snoring. Someone had to wake me up. And it was just frenetic action. Nothing was actually happening. It was just flashy things on the screen, people screaming, things blowing up in the background. I'm like, what am I watching?
It's a detriment. We have to educate them, if anything, in the arts, if anything, because we're going to have a weird 20, 30 years where the generation that's running.
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies is maybe the slowest movie of all time. And the fact that, younger generations can't appreciate it for what it is hurts my feelings a little bit. Osgood Perkins, his first film was called
Blackcoat's Daughter.
Oh, no. I must be the second one then. It was the pretty little thing that lives in the house.
Yeah, that was not his first.
Oh, I guess it's his second one.
There you go.
Okay, I love both of those movies, by the way. But this one was an atmospheric horror, and a lot of people are like, this isn't scary, nothing happened. And I'm just like, oh no. What's happening in this film is the emotion, the dread, the nothingness of what is happening is the film, and it is so beautiful. And it sucks to be like, oh, I want to show this to my little brother. I want to show this to someone who's younger so that they can understand, like, how to construct a beautiful film and how emotions and sounds can make a story. And then it's just like, oh man, your brain isn't wired. And it's like, it's not your fault. Your brain is literally not wired to be able to appreciate this. So
yeah, it's funny you brought that movie up. Not the second film, but Blackcoat's Daughter. So I have another podcast for the Second Screen called Cinema Podcast, and we did an episode on Osgood Perkins, right? And we tried showing. I tried showing Blackcoat's Daughter to a bunch of people because it's one of my favorite films in the last decade, and they were so bored. Like, nothing is happening in this movie. It's like, that's the point. Sit in the dread. Like, that's where the tension's coming from. And I was like, all right, this is clearly a movie just made for me.
And no,
which is so fair sometimes.
It is.
Some things are just for you.
It is absolutely not. And I mean, I know everybody in this room knows that my favorite movie of all time is Psycho, which his father was in.
Yeah.
I actually didn't make that connection until like a few months ago, and I feel really silly. But I also tried.
It's fair. It's fair. Perkins is a common last name.
I know. I tried to show Psycho. Well, actually, no. Yeah. I was in Tampa Theater a few years ago watching Psycho, and I heard two younger people in the audience behind me as I was walking out being like, yeah, I guess I can kind of understand why this movie is so great, but it was so boring and so slow and nothing happens. And I was just like,
Yeah. We probably lost our audience at this
Oh,
point.
sorry about that.
Osgood
Hold on, this
Perkins,
is a movie podcast. This is a
Osgood
film
Perkins, for those who
podcast.
don't know, his big one, his breakout success was Long Legs.
Mhm.
And then he did The Monkey with Stephen King.
That one was
and
better than Long
He
Legs.
just had one that just released. It's The Two People in the House. Gosh, I can't remember it now. But
Two People in the House.
that's not the name of the movie.
No.
But, yeah.
I
It
remember.
could have been, but it wasn't.
I can remember the movie poster in my head, but I can't remember what it's called.
Anyway,
Nice.
back to children's programming and Nurse Deon.
Right, not
Um,
horror films.
Yep. Oops.
I really enjoyed my conversation with him, and I thought it was so interesting how he evolved from being a camp counselor to a pediatric nurse to moving out to LA
Mhm.
to try to scrap together enough money. It is hard living out there, and believe me, healthcare individuals do not make a lot of money.
I believe it.
Neither do educators. And then he kind of fell into this, and he just seems so natural at it.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's so interesting because so many people who are successful do just fall into it because it's like, oh, I am passionate about a subject. I know about this subject and I want to bring this subject to a bunch of different people.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, it's easy to make something when you can find somebody else who is just as passionate about your
Yeah.
story.
You're in front of the camera all the time, Birdie. Do you
Yes.
find it totally natural?
At this point, yeah, it's been easier and easier and easier. The issue I have is interviews when I don't know what you're going to say. And then while you're answering, I have to think of a next question that relates to what you're currently
Gotta
saying.
be quick on your feet.
I know, but I'm not. Very slow, very out of shape.
He's
so-
not you.
Well, I appreciate that. And I take full credit for that. as well.
Not trying to be
I
a
take
brown
full
noser over
credit for
here.
that.
I did like what he mentioned, though, in his nursing job, right?
Mhm.
Every time he walks into a room, he's putting on a performance for somebody.
Yeah.
And he has to adjust in real time to fit the situation. When he mentioned that, it really did feel like, oh, that makes perfect sense. So I can see how that transitions to being in front of the camera and
Yeah.
being a host for an
Mm,
audience
yeah.
that you don't necessarily see.
Well, especially when it's kids,
Yeah.
right? Because kids are scared. And then Deon mentioned that you have to work with the parents and their emotions too, because the kids are going off with the parents. I mean, you can't turn fluorescent lights off, which I think is the scariest part when you walk into, when you're a kid. So the fact that he's actively working, like I said, he can keep up with doing that, putting on a performance, walking in, going like, how are we feeling? Instead of, oh my God, what is that?
Yeah, kids are sponges.
Kids are sponges.
They immediately, if they don't understand something, they can feel emotions of the people around them.
Yeah.
And I think bedside manner when it comes to nurses is so important.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's something that even doctors don't quite have. So when a nurse comes into the room, like I know I feel personally more settled.
Yeah.
So the fact that he just instinctively knows to do that.
Mhm.
And I did think it was interesting that he was mentioning that even though he has a performance, it's not as easy to translate on camera. And I wonder if just like Birdie, if with practice, if he'll be able to make that switch.
I think so. And
yeah.
he comes off completely relatable in the episodes. So, and they're in pre-production right now for season 2. For those at home watching with children, please check out Nurse Deon on YouTube.
Yes.
Kids are sponges, so we need more content like Nurse Deon. Otherwise, we are going to fall off a cliff at some point and end up in idiocracy.
Well, and the important thing too, I want to say, is he's young.
Yeah.
He's still flexible. He grew up with Sesame Street. I feel like we could all talk to puppets like more naturally than maybe the generation before us. So
That's probably true.
I feel like
And sometimes
It helps.
I would rather be talking to a puppet than a human being
I think we should
or an animal.
do puppets for
A puppet?
in the future. We'll each control our
A
own
puppet episode?
Yeah.
Puppet
And we can do the big like, what did you say?
All right.
Does
like, really
anybody know Jim
aggressive.
Henson?
Now,
Oh.
for,
He's
got the
for, for
connection.
our
We'll
get a
100th,
Ouija
our
board.
100th episode, we can do puppets.
100th episode. Okay.
Yeah, I will have them custom made for
Oh.
us. Okay. With that, we need to wrap things up.
We have to go buy custom puppets now.
Now we got to research
Gotta
that.
go.
Miss Birdie Doyle, where can they learn more about us?
You can learn more about us online at Film Tampa Bay, across the board on all social media platforms. You can also watch us on YouTube and listen to us anywhere you listen to podcasts. Check out the Roberto Torres and the Luis Montanez episode, which was back in November of Loose Framing. They talked about Nurse Deon and kind of gave us some more context as to why we have Nurse Deon in the first place. So
And with that, we certainly want to thank our sponsor, Blind Tiger Coffee, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. We will see you next time.